Good evening all. Welcome to our Thursday live session for the week. Good to see all of you who've tuned in on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I always want to say Twitter instead of LinkedIn. It's now 2 minutes past 8 p.m. Today is the 18th of April, 2024, and delighted to be here with you all for our weekly live session. If you know someone, as always, that would benefit from this conversation, this 1 hour session, up until 9 p.m., please share the link to this live session with them immediately. Take the next 30 seconds, 1 minute to share with as many people on your contact list as possible. As I always say, make sure you like and love them, respect them. We want good vibes only. Okay, so I'll give us 30 seconds or so to do that. And for those of you who may not know me yet, my name is Solomon Wangwe. I am the founder and managing director of Goshen Acquisitions and its wholly owned subsidiary, Grand Acres, the most transparent land sellers in this country. Hands down. Anyone tells you different, either they don't know what they're talking about or they're lying through their teeth. Okay, so welcome one and all. And we'll get started as soon as your questions start to come in. Again, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Okay, you're going through something, you're curious about something, you've heard something in the news or on the grapevine about property investment problems, issues, positive things. This is the time to have those discussions. Ask your questions. If you don't have a question, maybe you just have a commentary to make it as well. We're all here to learn and edify each other. So we'll get cracking as soon as your first question is here. There we go. Abdul Fattah. What's up, Abdul Fattah? It's good to see you again. Thank you for tuning in as always. We really appreciate your presence. Abdul Fattah is watching live from Mombasa. I wonder if it's raining out there, Abdul Fattah. It's raining cats and dogs here. A little bit of flooding on this side of Nairobi. I don't know what it's like in Mombasa, but karibu. Guru on TikTok. Says elaborate on escrow accounts. Escrow accounts. That's a very general question. Guru. How do you pronounce that? It looks like a Kikuyu spelling. Guru. Guru. I hope we're pronouncing your name right. Sir or madam, is that a woman's name or a man's name? Forgive us. If you be so kind to let us know if we pronounce your name right and what your gender is, we'd really appreciate that. So in summary, because I could talk for the next 2 hours about the escrow account that you're asking me to elaborate on, Guru. An escrow account is basically a bank account owned, managed, and overseen by a licensed advocate of the High Court of Kenya. That's what an escrow account is for the context that we're discussing today. Okay? Escrow accounts typically exist for the sole purpose of holding funds as a stakeholder, is the terminology they use legally. Stakeholder funds, meaning the advocate or advocates would hold funds from one party to be released to the other party once certain conditions have been met satisfactorily. Okay? This is a great way to engage in land transactions seriously, showing commitment to the seller if you're a buyer, that you have the funds available and ready to complete the transaction, but you do not allow the seller to receive beneficial possession of the funds, because if something goes wrong during the course of your transaction, you want to be able to pull out of that transaction and keep the maximum amount of your money as possible if it's not part of the penalty. If you're the one breaking the transaction, for instance, Law Society of Kenya recommends a 10% penalty. That number will go down as the value of the transaction goes higher. Okay, but 10% is a rule of thumb. If I, as a buyer, pull out of a transaction, I get penalized 10% of the transaction value in liquidated damages to compensate the seller for the time I have wasted with him during the course of my transaction that I'm now pulling out of. Of course, by then they will have incurred some costs. They will have to pay their licensed advocate for sale agreement drafting, blah, 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 communication back and forth. That's what the liquidated damages are supposed to cover. Now, excuse me, I'm choking here a bit. But if I pay the seller directly and they use the funds and I needed to pull out of the transaction, then I have a problem because there's no funds to keep. Assuming by that point I've paid 50% of the transaction value and the seller used the funds already, and I want to pull out, even if it's my fault, I have the right to pull out of a transaction before completion as a buyer, provided that I incur the penalty prescribed by the sale agreement beforehand. Okay, so you want to negotiate that percentage depending on the value of your transaction before you both sign on the dotted line. Very important. You cannot negotiate those numbers after sale agreement has been signed. Okay, you want to do that before. Thank you, sir. There we go. So if I have paid, for instance, any amount over and above 10% as a transaction deposit or installment, and I decide to pull out of the transaction, I want to be able to get my money back less than 10%. Okay? That will be virtually impossible to do in most cases if you paid the seller directly and they have beneficial possession of the funds, meaning it's with them. You sent to the seller's account. Instead, what you want to do is send the money to an escrow account managed, owned by one of the advocates. Has to be a licensed advocate for the period that you're making the payment, okay? And before you send the money to that account, the licensed advocate who owns that account needs to issue what is called an undertaking, a professional undertaking. It's a letter of professional undertaking, which is basically them formally saying, I am receiving X amount of money from so and so for the purposes of this transaction as per sale agreement for LR number, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And these funds shall be held for stakeholder or a stakeholder until these conditions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how many there are fully met to the satisfaction of both parties. And I will only release them when those conditions are met. Why is that important? If the sell or the advocate who owns the escrow account either helps themselves to the funds or pays the seller before you as a buyer are fully satisfied with the agreed upon preconditions, they are liable for professional prosecution. They could get disbarred, report them to LSK, take them to court, sue them, whatever. It's a serious issue. Okay, it's not a light thing. Careers have been ended over this particular issue, and a few people have gone to jail as well. So you want to make sure your money is held safely in an escrow account because of those inbuilt protections. I hope that makes sense. So in a nutshell, Guru, GWRU is how he spells or how they spell their name. That in a nutshell is what an escrow account is and the purpose it is supposed to serve. I hope that helps. If you need more in-depth explanation of this, please talk to your licensed advocate, make friends with one as quickly as possible. One of the things every person, every responsible adult human being needs in this world is immediate direct contact, meaning you speed dial and they pick up first or second ring. Your doctor, your medical doctor, preferably the one who's been treating you since you were a baby, because they know your whole history, okay, or whatever specialist you need to be talking to. The other one is your lawyer. Those two are very important. So if you don't have a licensed advocate in your contact list that you can call at a moment's notice or email, and they would respond because you pay them, you respect their profession, and you pay them for their professional advice and counsel, okay? Don't expect a lawyer to answer every beck and call when you don't pay them. You disrespect their education and experience. Pay them, pay for consultation every now and then. I'll list your questions, ask your questions, talk to one, they'll explain to you even more adequately exactly what an escrow account is and the purpose it serves, and they'll give you examples, so on and so forth. Simple definitions are also available on Google, and they will be consistent with the explanation I just gave. So all the best to you. Use an escrow account. That's step number what on our checklist? 8. You guys, come on. You guys should be able to list those things in your sleep by now. My staff over here, my teammates, don't know what step is escrow account in our Grand Acres checklist. Step number 8. Shame on you guys. Okay, step number 8 in our checklist, 9 steps to safe land buying in Kenya, is use an escrow account. Keep yourself safe, keep your money safe as much as you can. Make sure you use that facility. It's not a must, but it's highly recommended. All right. Abdul Fattah says, I see how important it is to involve an advocate in buying land using the escrow account. Can two individuals still use an escrow account without involving an advocate for a different product, say a car? Absolutely. Escrow accounts can be used to hold funds for any sorts of transactions. Share transfers, vehicle purchases, even if you're buying a wheelbarrow and you want it done uh, legally with a sale agreement, depending if you're buying one of those 100,000 shilling wheelbarrows from Bungoma County, you might want to use an escrow account, right? So seriously, escrow accounts can be used to hold funds in trust for both parties involving a transaction on anything. It's not limited to land. Okay. Every time you do, however, make sure you get a professional undertaking from the owner of the escrow account. Otherwise, it's as good as sending money to the seller directly. There you go. Odinga underscore B on TikTok. What's up? Good to see you. I think you're watching us. Okay, it says TikTok, but I'm seeing the YouTube icon. Odinga underscore B says, what are the procedures to follow when someone loses or misplaces a title deed? That's a great question, Odinga. We've actually addressed this particular one a number of times. I strongly recommend you go through our archives on our YouTube channel called Own Land in Kenya, or you can just search for Grand Acres. Find the title that addresses this. We actually enumerated step by step what you ought to do if you lose a title deed and you need to have it replaced. Okay, it's a simple but very technical process that you have to follow to the T. Otherwise, you might find yourself in problems. So please find that video, Odinga underscore B. We have tons of content on our YouTube channel that you could binge on, refer to whenever you like, absolutely free, because that's what we love to do, is empower one another to make safe and savvy land investments in Kenya. So help yourself to that. If you have any questions after that, feel free to reach out, DM us, share your contacts. I'll be happy to give you a call and have a one-on-one. Lone Wolf on TikTok says, after grant certificate, how long for the title deed? Lone Wolf, it depends on the registry and whichever professional you are using to follow up. Okay, it could be a couple weeks, 3 weeks, it could be 5 years. I know people who waited longer. It depends. In short, get yourself a proper licensed advocate of the High Court of Kenya, one who is conversant with conveyancing, which is commercial property transactions. Okay, the conveyancing is a term for the process involving the sale and purchase of land, transfer of property ownership, land, buildings, whatever the case may be. Make sure you find a licensed advocate who specializes in conveyancing, is what I'm trying to say, because if they specialize in conveyancing, they will have very strong networks in all the necessary offices and can get things done a bit faster than one who does not. And they do not have to bribe whatsoever to do that. It's not a must that you bribe to get things done. You may need to wait a bit longer than it might take if you bribed, but you don't want to do anything while selling your soul. That's foolishness and illegal and immoral, plus unethical. Lots of problems with that. Do stuff right. The only way to do stuff right and efficiently is to deal with experienced specialists. Okay, so find a licensed advocate to help you, and they can make that process as humanly short as possible without you having to sell your soul. Okay, Sean Don on TikTok says, hi, sir. I'm Sean from Kenya, currently in Qatar. I'm interested in buying land. Where do I start? Sean, thank you for tuning in from Qatar. I love that country. Stunning development. If you want to see what money can do in this earth, visit places like Doha, Qatar, Dubai, of course, usual suspects, UAE, amazing stuff happening there. I'm glad that you're tuning in from there, Sean Don, and thank you for your great question and for being interested in buying land. Yeah, if I were you, Sean Don, step number one, define your goal. What's your purpose for buying the land? That will determine every single thing you do thereafter. For better guidance and details, go to our website right now. It's www.grandacres.co.ke. I'll repeat that once more, www.grandacres.co.ke. Find the tab that says checklist at the top, click on it, put in your name and email address, and it'll automatically send you our 9 steps checklist to buying land safely. It's absolutely free. You don't have to pay for it. Step number one there is define your investment goal. There's a total of 9 steps on that checklist. If you follow every single one of those, you will rarely have problems unless now it's supernatural. Uh, you have to start casting devils out of offices and people. You will hardly have issues in your land investment journey. So welcome to that list and let us know if you need any other help from there. serialsoccer.gi on Instagram says, I'm here to say thanks. I'm a law student and honestly, I came from my property law exam today happy due to the knowledge I've acquired through you. Wow, that's insane. I should start charging for these sessions. Congratulations, Serial Soccer, for for passing that exam. I'm happy that what we shared helped, and that's really encouraging to hear. Thank you for that kind compliment.
He also said,
Uh-huh.
my property law unit in law school is very simple, thanks to you.
Excellent. Excellent. I hope you all heard that. Yeah. It's now time for offerings. You should pass the basket around for that amazing revelation right there. I mean, it really is. Thank you for sharing that. And this is why we do what we do, precisely for that. So thank you for sharing that. Lone Wolf on TikTok says, do you have offices in Mombasa? Lone Wolf, we do not have offices in Mombasa yet. By God's grace, we shall. So stay tuned. I'm sure we're going to make a lot of noise about it whenever we do. LuluPet16 on TikTok says, where are you based? We are based in Nairobi, Kenya, in the green leafy suburbs of Lavington, on Riverside Drive, in a beautiful building called the Riverside Square. You can't miss it. It's the nicest building on Riverside Drive. And it is the nicest one because that's where we are. So wherever we're going to move to will be the next nicest place. But this is where we're based. You can find our details on the website as well. And you're welcome to visit. I hope you can. We'd be happy to meet you. Abdul Fattah says, for an average Kenyan, how can one validate a licensed advocate? For an average Kenyan, Abdul Fattah, I would say download the free copy of the Grand Acres checklist, 9 steps to safe land buy. We actually give you instructions on how to ensure your licensed advocate is current for the year that you're engaging them. Can you find that step? Number 6, can you pick it? So if you look at step number 6 on our Grand Acres checklist, absolutely free download. Go to our website, fill in your name and email address. It will send it to you directly. Point number A, 6A says to verify that they are licensed by the Law Society of Kenya to practice in the year that you hire them. Number 1, ask them to provide you their license number and certificate. Number 2, enter the advocate's personal name in the search advocate window. There's a window on LSK's website that says search advocate. Enter the name. We even included the link. Okay. And it'll tell you very quickly, immediately, whether or not they are licensed to practice for that year. It's very simple. Could save you headaches, untold pain. Advocates have been known to do some supernatural things to their clients. So simple step that anyone can follow. So download your checklist. There's tons of good insight and advice step by step on how you go about safe land buying in Kenya. And it's absolutely free. And make sure you tell all your friends and family to go on the website and download it for themselves or share it widely. Okay? All the best. Thanks for that question, Abdul Fattah. We out of questions? Questions, Imeisha? What was the website again? This is coming from LuluPet16. The website is www.grandacres.co.ke. Again, www.grandacres.co.ke. Cooking is Collis says, I just want to say hi, seriously. A very serious hi back to you. Cooking is Corliss. Thank you for saying hi, seriously. Lots of interesting comments on TikTok. Mm-hmm.
He's trying to call us.
He's trying to call us. Mm-hmm. Do you want to risk picking up? I hope he's fully dressed. People do crazy things on TikTok. Cooking is Corey's. I hope. Well, I'll let Gladys decide. She's the one. She's the one DJing today, and David back here. Okay, Anita Kavu Nganga. Anita Kavu Nganga. This is on Instagram. Says, "Hi. I hope this is on topic, but in the diaspora, it's really hard to find trusted developers. How can we go about this? Is it possible to curate a list of trusted developers? Do you develop?" Thank you for that question, Anita. I feel your pain. You know, we are developers in the sense that we develop horizontal infrastructure, and that is to say we only develop things that go in the ground, things like water, waste treatment, power, fiber optics, electricity, roads, drainage, and such. We do not do vertical development yet, although we are certainly working our way to it. I'm not sure we can effectively curate a list of trusted developers in that sense, but we hear you loud and clear, and we'll see what we can do to address that. Thank you for making that comment. Wamuru Mugo says, when one gets financing from the bank to buy land, is the registration of charge done simultaneously with the transfer and consent at the land board? Yes, it is. The charge gets registered first in actual sense. Okay. But you could say they're done simultaneously. But, you know, it does get registered first. That's been my experience. Okay, that was the last question. You guys are quiet today. Maybe you saw something interesting in the news around property investment in Kenya. Please share. Otherwise, I remain on standby for your questions. It's now 8:30. We have exactly 30 minutes to go before we sign out. So let's take advantage and send those questions in. Cooking is Coris is saying that we should watch his TikTok. He is legit. Uh, okay, cooking is Coris. Will not promise that we'll watch, but we'll see. While I wait for your questions, I just want to advertise that I own land in Kenya. Do you? If you don't, get busy doing so. Give Grand Acres a call. The most transparent land sellers in Kenya. Aha, okay. Let's resume. That was our short commercial break. Is there another question? Sally Kongo. Hey, Sally. When are we coming to? We're coming soon. We're coming soon. Stay tuned. We may come so fast and furious, you will be shocked. And we may never leave either. We're looking forward to seeing you, Sally. Thank you for asking. Anita Kavonganga again on IG says, me, I'll ask my questions. Please do, Anita, since everyone else is quiet. And Anita says again, so when you say you are working on it, how soon? I want to build, but I'm scared. Well, Anita, I did not say that we're working on it. I said we will look into it. We do not typically curate developers' lists. But if you're referring to me saying we're working on starting to build vertically, yes. How soon? We were actually hoping to break ground within this year. Unfortunately, the individual that we were purchasing land from in Juja, specifically for this purpose, passed away last week, or rather early this week. Sadly, very sadly, beautiful, lovely gentleman, older, senior gentleman, who gave us a very amazing opportunity to purchase land from him for this particular purpose. We lost him this week, so that's going to delay our acquisition process because things have to go through succession proceedings, which do take time in Kenya, typically about 12 months. We'll see if we can get other options in the meantime, but yes, that's how seriously we are working on it. So please stay tuned. We'll be sure to let you know when we're breaking ground. Thank you for asking. Black Lion International on Instagram says, do you sell leasehold plots? Yes, we do. The only leasehold plots we've ever sold, in fact, are in Naivasha, our Olkekun project, located directly opposite the Safari Center or the Art Cafe in Naivasha. If you know where the Art Cafe is, right on the highway, we're located directly across from that. These are leasehold titles, every single one of them, brand new 99-year leases, renewable leases. So if you're interested in that, Black Lion International, please reach out, DM us. We'll send you the details and see if we can add you to the lovely neighborhood there. Thank you for asking. Abdul Fattah says, do you see the system used in the US market on real estate be adopted in Kenya? No, not yet. We are a long way behind. Uh, that would require acts of parliament, changes in laws, changes in procedures. That sort of shift in Kenya's history takes forever. So I'm not too hopeful about that. Unfortunately, I have to be honest. But let's wait and see. So Abdul Fattah is clarifying further, saying whereby investors put down a deposit of 20 to 30% and the rest by the bank. The investor can leverage by renting or leasing the property. Well, that particular aspect of it you could do today, right? Deposit 20, 30%. Banks will be happy to finance even up to 80% on an apartment or a developed building, for instance, assuming all the documents are in order. About whether or not you can leverage by renting or leasing, that is a completely different story because our interest rates here are extremely high. I think almost 2.5 times the interest rates you will typically find in the US. That alone removes the option of positive cash flow leveraging. By positive cash flow, I mean your payments on the loan that you took from the bank to buy the property are lower than the rent you would collect from the open market today. In most cases in Nairobi today, your rent, uh, if not exactly what you need to pay the bank, will be less than your mortgage payment because of our interest rates. Okay, and the term limits. Most mortgages in Kenya are 10 years. In the US, you have 30-year mortgages as a standard with very low interest, 7% average, in some cases as low as 4.5%, 5%. When you take those facts into consideration, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to collect enough rent to pay your mortgage and ideally pay you also. That's what it means to leverage successfully and have positive cash flow. I haven't seen that happen in Kenya yet, unless you're dealing with a very low end of the market, in which case you don't really need bank financing to do that. In fact, most banks will not touch those. So no, again, on that note, it would require banking policy changes, which involve the central bank, interest rate caps. The banking industry itself has to play ball. We have seen historically they always resist any change that has to do with lowering of interest rates to the market because they want to make as much profit as possible for their shareholders. It's in their interest to charge us high interest, pun intended. So let's wait and see. But thank you for asking. Wamuru Mugo on Instagram says again, the registration of charge in the next lands board sitting, which is likely to have legal repercussions. The registration of charge in the next land board sitting, which is likely to have. I'm not sure I understand your question, Wamuru Mugo. Is there a part one to that question that we've missed? Wait, David, Amka.
Even us, we're not getting the question clear.
Okay, is that the first one from Wamuru Mugo? Okay, sorry, Wamuru. Let's start with the first part of your question on Instagram, which reads as follows. When one gets financing from the bank to buy land, is the registration of charge done simultaneously with the transfer and consent at the land board? Okay. Go back. Let me address question number one. Land board. Okay. So if you're buying the land and you have to go to the land board, immediately that tells me that the land is agricultural. Okay, because only agricultural land requires land control board consent in Kenya. Okay, that is a completely separate process from registering a charge. They have nothing to do with each other in terms of time, when they happen. One happens before the other. You need the land board consent before you can register a charge on agricultural land. Okay, so you'll get the land board consent before the charge is registered. And the charge being registered is done at the same time as the transfer process, because it's the transfer that triggers the charge because you've borrowed. Okay, so charge and transfer happen at the same time. Consent from the land control board happens before those, because you need consent. The lands registrar will need an original copy of the letter of consent from the land control board consenting to the registration of the charge before they can actually register the charge against the title when the property is being transferred to you. And the bank will require that as well before they release funds. Okay? Part 2 says, in one of the lands registry, they asked us to first transfer the property, then register the charge. The problem is that since the land board sits once a month, we risk rescheduling the registration. Well, registration is not done by schedule. Wamuru, registration is done as and when documents are lodged by your advocate or yourself to the registry. So there's no concern there about rescheduling a registration. What you have to schedule is the land control board, LCB, the land control board hearing or sitting. Yes, in most parts of the country, they do meet once a month. Don't do that special board nonsense to fast track and not have to wait. That's an illegal arrangement, pure and simple. Ministry of Lands has gone as far as to post public memos on public notice boards at every location where there's a land control board for the members of the public to know there is no such thing as a special board. So don't cut corners. Book for the normal one. Even if you have to wait 4 weeks for the next one, do that. Once you have the land control board consent, then you submit those with your transfer forms, original title, all your completion documents to the registry, and they will process the registration. It's that simple. Part 3. Can one get the land board consent and registration of charge be done in one land board sitting? Okay. Land board consent and registration of charge. Yes. I know what you mean to ask there is, can you get a consent to transfer and a consent to register a charge at the same land board hearing or sitting? Yes, you can, and you should. Just indicate that in your application forms to the land control board. Awesome. I think we've covered all of Omuru's questions. Anita Kavo Nganga on Instagram again says, I'm a proud owner. Can I be your client? Absolutely, Anita. We'd be honored to have you as our client. Feel free to reach out, DM us so that we can have your details and you can have ours, and let us know how we may be of service to you. Black Lion International on Instagram says, can foreigners get mortgages for apartments? Yes, with some lending institutions, foreigners can get mortgages for apartments. Abdul Fatah says, is this why SACCOs are successful in our country?
I think this is a follow-up from the previous question.
What was the previous question? Wait, don't send me part 2 questions.
This is sent later.
Okay. Well, Are you hungry? Shall I order dinner for you? Okay, changamka, bro. Abdul Fattah, is this why circles are successful? What was the first part? Whereby investors put down. Okay. Uh, okay. So Abdul Fattah, I know what Abdul Fattah is asking. Yes, circles are very successful. I think the last report I read said that cooperatives and circles were sitting on somewhere in the region of $6 billion in cash deposits. $6 billion. That's a lot of cash, especially for an economy of this size. Okay. Um, yes, circles are very successful in that respect because they do not follow banking conventions, commercial banking conventions. For instance, most circles have an arrangement where you can borrow up to 3 times your savings in the account. Uh, I don't know any commercial bank that will allow me to do that. Commercial banks look at the value of the property versus your ability to support your monthly payments for the amount you're looking to borrow. They don't care about, your cash deposits necessarily. They're more interested in your debt servicing because that's where they make money, is on interest. Okay, SACCOs, on the other hand, exist primarily, at least in the first instance, to promote the financial empowerment of their members. And many of those are deposit taking SACCOs, which they then leverage that cash by lending to one another at, you know, close to commercial interest rates, but they're much friendlier terms. And for that reason, they attract a lot of people. And you have, in essence, what's happened with SACCOs is pooling of small amounts of money in big volumes, whereas commercial banks rely on, larger deposit making clients and so on. And also, banks are regulated by CBK. SACCOs are regulated uh, differently by the Cooperatives Act. Okay, so the rules are different for SACCOs versus banks, which is why they can be as bespoke as they are in terms of meeting the financial needs of their memberships, depending on the charter that governed their formation and that sort of thing. But short answer to your question, Abdul Fattah, is yes, this is why SACCOs are successful, not just in this country, but in many other countries across Africa. Yeah. Gishangi _A.M on Instagram says, "Hi, sir. I have a question. Have you heard of Konza Ranchers Association? Mom bought land from them in 2019, and to date, we have never gotten our title yet. They kept promising. What can I do to help?" Gishangi _, thank you for sending in your question. I have not heard of Konza Ranchers Association. I've heard of Malili Ranching Company, not Konza Ranchers Association. I suspect they have land in the same place, hence the name. I'd need to have more details about your mom's transaction with them as far as the land purchase is concerned before I could say what you could do to help. Perhaps you could provide those details, but the long and short of it is go see a licensed advocate. If you don't have one yet, find one. If you have one yet and they haven't advised you about what to do so far, fire them immediately and get another one. That's my strongest advice to you. And I'm sure they'll be able to find some path forward for your mom. I wish you all the best and thank you for asking. Do we have assets in Machakos, and how long does it take to process titles after purchase of land? Well, we do not have any assets in Machakos yet, Gishangi. How long that it takes to process titles after purchase of land, as I said before, will depend on many factors, chiefest of which will be the registry that you're dealing with and the specific licensed advocate or professional who is helping you with that process. Those are the two biggest determinants on how long it takes. I've had titles registered in less than 24 hours. Okay, it doesn't have to take long. It depends on the registry, it depends on the lawyer, how efficient they are. Also depends a little bit on you. Have you paid them so that they are bothered with your transaction? Don't expect cheap or free service. Pay the lawyers what they are due. They go to school for 4 years, do pupillage for 3, 4 years, build their practices for X number of years after that. They pay their dues, they pay licensing fees, they sit for bar examinations and maintain their license every year to LSK. Pay lawyers what they're due. There's a remuneration order by LSK which determines what advocates should be charging as a basic framework for their professional services. If you don't know where that is, go to the LSK website, download it, it's absolutely free. Pay your advocates well, and then they can deal with things for you properly. So that's my best advice for you, Gishangi. We have 9 minutes remaining and something went wrong. What went wrong? Having technical issues. Internet. Hauna bundles.
I need to be able to connect there. I need to be on the building. Just
Okay. No more questions? Shall we end early?
there is one last one.
Uh-huh. Mamoru Mugo says, when seeking discharge, which documents do you need? Loan statements. Kindly elaborate. Well, when you're seeking a discharge, you need a release letter from the person who held the charge in the first place that you have satisfied the debt repayment. Therefore, they're agreeing to have the title discharged. So you need some form of letter, discharge letter from the bank. You need the original title as well, which the bank should release to you, because in some cases they hold the title. In others, they might release it to you even if it's charged. If it's agricultural, you need a land control board consent letter to discharge. Yeah, and your licensed advocate will help you with the rest. Again, these are very technical and legal issues. Work with a licensed advocate, Wamoro. Pay one, ask them the questions you need to ask. I can only give you so much guidance based on our experience, okay? Granted, what we do share is shared truthfully and accurately, and we do have considerable experience, but there is no substitute for hiring a licensed advocate to help you. So do that as quickly as you can. Do yourself that big favor, and you'll be good to go. Peace on TikTok says, can you get a loan from a bank to purchase a house while you're living abroad? Yes, you can. Some banks are very proactive about supporting diasporans to purchase properties back home. I just got wind the other day. You might want to look into it. That Stanbic Bank, for instance, is offering loans to people in the diaspora. Say if you're in the US and you want to buy a house in Kenya, they will lend to you to buy that house based on US interest rates, not Kenyan interest rates, which is awesome. Because presumably you're earning your money in that currency wherever you're at. Those currencies here even do attract lower interest rates than Kenya shillings, but I'm sure the US interest rates are even lower than what we charge for foreign currency interest rates here. So some banks are a bit more proactive and aggressive about supporting diasporans. So do your homework and find out. I've just given you a clue about Stanbic. Check out ABSA. I like ABSA. They're doing some interesting things. Yeah, short answer to your question is yes. Black Lion International on Instagram says, where can one find information on the status of settlement schemes in Kenya? I'm not sure, Black Lion, but we will find out and get back to you sometime tomorrow. We will try and get that information for you, Black Lion International.
Last question.
That's the last question. Okay, great. Thank you, one and all, for making time to join us today. You're welcome, Peace. Thank you for tuning in. Every single one of you, Vino.ke, every one of you sent in a question. Really appreciate it. I hope we've learned something. For those who didn't ask questions, I hope you learned something. And I look forward to the next one if we do have one. It's kind of up in the air whether or not we'll have another one. This may very well have been the last live session we will ever do. Who knows? But I just want to say thank you to all of you. I wish you all massive success, happy land buying, happy property investing, happy wealth making. Get busy about it. Don't waste time. Today is the cheapest that land will ever be in this country. So stop making excuses. Find what you're looking for, define your goals, download our checklist. It's absolutely free. Get started. Even if you're not buying from us, use the checklist. It's a useful tool that we put together just for you. You'll find it on our website, www.grandacres.co.ke. And if you have questions, reach out to us on WhatsApp. Our WhatsApp number is 07 00001 0001. That's 07 00001 0001. And yeah, wishing you all grand acres and a blessed night. Cheers.
And fans, special announcement. Imbuko is back. Yes, we're back with Imbuko 6. This time with a director's discount offer. Grab your 1 acre lot for only 999,000 Kenyan shillings, down from 1.19 million Kenyan shillings. Here are the terms. Pay a deposit of only 300,000 Kenyan shillings and the balance in 120 days. We only have 8 lots left. Go on, call or WhatsApp us at 07 001 0001.